In a few weeks, the 2026 FIFA World Cup kicks off across 11 American cities simultaneously. Over $100 billion in active infrastructure investment across all 11 host metros. And one question nobody has answered yet: which city actually transformed itself? We've spent months going deep on every host city: the transit systems, the airports, the waterfront transformations, the megaprojects, the gaps. Today, we're ranking all 11, starting with Dallas. AT&T Stadium in Arlington is genuinely world-class, a $1.3 billion venue that redefined what an NFL stadium could be. A World Cup semifinal is being played there this summer. The experience inside will be extraordinary. Getting there requires a car. The infrastructure surrounding the stadium, highways, parking, car-dependent sprawl, is exactly what it was before the bid. No meaningful transit connection, no transformation story. A great venue in an unchanged city. The makeover score for Dallas is the stadium itself, which was already there. Atlanta has the same problem: world-class venue, unchanged city underneath. But the scale of the gap is even wider. Atlanta has the busiest airport on Earth. Hartsfield-Jackson processes more passengers annually than any other airport in the world, and it is fully ready for the World Cup surge. Mercedes-Benz Stadium opened in 2017 and raised the bar for NFL venues globally. The problem is everything in between. Atlanta is a transit desert. Getting to the stadium without a car in a city built around highways is still a challenge. The World Cup didn't fix the sprawl. It never could. Atlanta passes the hosting test. It doesn't pass the transformation test. Houston is a different kind of C-tier story. The problem isn't transit, it's the ground itself. Houston is hosting 6 matches, including a quarterfinal. Fan zones are ready, the visitor experience will be genuinely good. But Houston floods regularly. Harvey was 2017. The pipes froze in 2021. The fundamental vulnerabilities of a city built fast on flat coastal land haven't been addressed by World Cup preparation. 6 weeks of soccer. The infrastructure questions that matter most to residents are longer than any tournament timeline. Boston rounds out C-tier, and it's the most ironic entry on this list. The city with America's oldest transit system couldn't use the World Cup to fix it. Boston is hosting matches at Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, 45 minutes from the city by rail. The MBTA has invested in matchday service and the connection works. But the MBTA is one of the most troubled transit systems in America, the oldest in the country, chronically underfunded, still recovering from safety shutdowns in recent years. The T that visitors ride to Foxborough is the same T that frustrated residents have been riding for decades. Historic infrastructure with a new paint job is not a transformation. 4 cities, same pattern. World-class venues, unchanged infrastructure underneath. Before we move up, here's what separates the tiers, not which city puts on the best show. 3 things: scale of transformation, connection to residents, not just visitors, and legacy beyond the tournament. With that framework, here's who made B tier.
The World Cup final is at MetLife Stadium, the biggest match in the world's biggest sport.
New York didn't need a World Cup makeover. It already had one. NJ Transit, Moynihan Train Hall, LaGuardia's $8 billion reconstruction, all moving before the bid. The World Cup gave some projects a deadline, but the scale of New York's infrastructure investment is so large, the tournament is almost a footnote. Hosting the final without needing to transform for it means the city was already there. B tier not because it underperformed, because the transformation was already underway. Miami is B tier for the opposite reason. New York didn't need the World Cup. Miami didn't need it either, but for a completely different set of reasons. The Bentley Deservador, the Waldorf Astoria Supertall, 830 Brickell, the Underline, 10 miles of linear park beneath the metro rail that most people outside the city have never heard of. The Miami River District, the airport expansion. Miami looks extraordinary. It looked extraordinary before the World Cup bid. The tournament arrived at a city already building at full speed, which means the World Cup gets credit for the deadline, but not the vision. The Underline alone, $120 million for 10 miles of connected park would rank higher on any other city's list. In Miami, it is one item in a list that goes on for pages, not transformed by the World Cup specifically. B tier is cities that showed up with something already built. A tier is cities that used the deadline to build something new. The difference is significant. The single most transformational infrastructure achievement in the Bay Area's World Cup window is Caltrain electrification, a $2.3 billion project completed in 2024 that converted one of the region's most important commuter corridors from diesel to electric. A corridor that millions of Bay Area residents use daily is genuinely better than it was 4 years ago. The broader regional picture is more complicated. Improvements are real, but phased across multiple cities and counties in ways that make the transformation harder to see as a single, unified story. Los Angeles is A tier for a reason that will frustrate LA fans. Not because it underdelivered, but because it's still mid-delivery.
On May 8th, 2026, LA opened the Purple Line's Section 1 extension, a subway beneath Beverly Hills that used to be a punchline. Now, it's carrying passengers. Los Angeles is spending $50 billion getting ready for the 2028 Olympics, and the World Cup is the first inspection of that investment. The Purple Line pushing west toward UCLA, the LAX People Mover connecting terminals to a new transit hub, the Inglewood Transit Connector linking Metro directly to SoFi Stadium, the LA River Master Plan transforming 51 miles of concrete drainage into green public space. The scale is genuinely extraordinary. The ambition is real, and the World Cup arrives at roughly 70% completion, meaning LA is being stress tested before the project is done. The streets are still broken. The stormwater gap is $24 billion. The transit doesn't reach everywhere it needs to yet. LA is the most ambitious makeover in the ranking. It is also the most unfinished. Kansas City is A tier for the opposite reason to LA. Not because it's unfinished, because nobody saw it coming. Here is the argument nobody expected to make. Kansas City, the smallest market in the entire World Cup, may have achieved a higher percentage transformation than any other host city on this list, including Los Angeles. Think about the starting point: a car-first Midwest city, no world-class transit, no global brand recognition beyond Patrick Mahomes and barbecue. And right now, a $12 billion transformation happening simultaneously across the entire metro. The KC streetcar riverfront extension opened last week, specifically timed for World Cup crowds. The Chiefs announced a $3 billion domed stadium crossing the state line into Kansas. The Royals announced a $3 billion downtown ballpark at Crown Center. The Panasonic EV battery facility, one of North America's largest, opened 30 miles southwest. Current Landing, a $1 billion riverfront district backed by Patrick and Brittany Mahomes, delivering its first residential units this spring, adjacent to CPKC Stadium, the world's first stadium built specifically for a women's professional soccer team. Kansas City is swinging $12 billion at a city of 700,000 people. Would be S tier if the transit reached the stadium. Two cities remain. Both earn their place at the top. Both are transforming in ways that will outlast this tournament by decades. But they got there differently. Philadelphia is not just hosting the World Cup. It is hosting America's 250th birthday. A round of 16 knockout match on July 4th, 2026. At the birthplace of the Declaration of Independence, on the 250th anniversary of the day the United States became the United States. No other host city has a moment like this. Philadelphia alone gets July 4th. And behind the symbolism, a city genuinely mid-transformation. The $329 million I-95 CAP project, building an 11.5-acre park over an active interstate at Penn's Landing, steel beams spanning live lanes of I-95 as we speak. The $500 million airport transformation completed just in time. The Broad Street line, delivering the most affordable stadium transit of any host city in America. $2.90. The $2.14 billion in Center City development active simultaneously. The $6.2 billion Navy Yard transformation, turning a forgotten military base into a new neighborhood.
9 million square feet of office to residential conversion, making Philadelphia a national leader in adaptive reuse. Philadelphia is not a city that waited for the World Cup to start building. The World Cup is arriving at the exact moment that building is becoming visible all at once. The Penn's Landing cap won't be finished until 2029. The SEPTA structural deficit hasn't been permanently solved. The rivers overflow in summer storms. But no city in this ranking is doing more simultaneously, or doing it with more symbolic weight than Philadelphia in the summer of 2026. And then there is Seattle. Philadelphia gets S tier for the breadth of its transformation and the weight of its moment. Seattle gets S tier for something different. A single infrastructure achievement so unusual, it stops the conversation entirely. On March 28, 2026, Seattle became the first city in the world to run a passenger train on a floating bridge, crossing Lake Washington between Seattle and Bellevue, downtown to downtown in under 15 minutes. A connection that didn't exist 2 months ago. That one detail tells you everything about where Seattle is in its transformation. The $30 billion Sound Transit 3 program, voter approved in 2016, building 62 miles of new light rail and 37 new stations. The one line running from Linwood to Federal Way. The $5 billion Upgrade SEA program with 120 simultaneous construction projects, transforming Seattle-Tacoma International Airport just in time. The Seattle waterfront, freed from the Alaskan Way Viaduct, transformed through over $1.1 billion in construction into a genuine urban destination. The $4 billion SR-99 tunnel that made it possible. One of the largest diameter tunneling projects in American history. Seattle didn't transform for the World Cup. It has been transforming since voters approved a $30 billion transit expansion a decade ago. The World Cup is arriving at the exact moment the transformation is becoming impossible to ignore. The funding gap is real. Sound Transit faces a $34.5 billion projected shortfall through 2046. Parts of the waterfront are still being finished. But no city in this ranking has delivered more genuinely world-first infrastructure in the World Cup window than Seattle.
Which city got ranked too low? And which one is overrated? Drop your take in the comments. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.